So the auger motor has quit working, and the first thing we want to do is empty out the hopper. Make sure there's no obstructions in the auger itself, no screws, crayons, etc. Okay, here we are with the back removed. Like with most of the Whitfield stoves, you can see the pressure switch there with the orange hose. Power flows into and out of that pressure switch before making it to the auger motor. This auger motor sure looks like it's seen better days. Okay, now when you start out, the motor's in this position. To access the set collar, you can just rotate the motor up now that there isn't. Okay, so now I've got the auger motor removed, and I'm going to check the bearing in the auger end plate here. Now when I rotate this, and here it makes a noise, it gets really tough to spin at one spot. I'm not sure if you can tell or not, but the brass bushing is spinning with the auger. Can you see that? Yeah, the brass bushing spins. You can also push it up and in there a little bit. Good indication that the bushing needs to be replaced. This is a they call a brass bushing oilette. Okay, I got the auger end plate off, and one of the first things I notice as I take this bushing off is there's a bunch of, looks like some form of lubricant. High temperature anti-seize is what it should be, but really this is supposed to be a permanently lubricated part. You're not supposed to put any grease or lube here, so over time that will actually add to the friction. But that does indicate that someone in the past has had an issue with this making noise. Now, as I spin it, it feels really gummy up in the top of this thing. I'll drop the auger out, and I notice a bunch of the same high temperature grease on the end of the auger shaft. Okay, so at this point, I'm going to mention that the new auger motor has spade terminals attached to it. The old motor, the wires went straight into the block. So I'm going to just cut the wires about right here, and I'm going to add just standard insulated wire connectors like you could find at any hardware store. Make sure you use insulated wires. Make sure, hopefully by this point you've unplugged the stove for sure. But that is hot, has 110 power going to it, so you want to make sure you use only insulated connectors. I still need to finish cleaning up the bushing that's up inside of the hopper. Let's see if we can get a better picture of that now. Okay, so I've determined that the bushing plate and bushing, existing one, was spinning in there and could have been causing a problem with the auger rotation. So before I replace it, and just throw parts at the problem, I'm going to do a little bench test. Now I cut the wires off up here, and I put wire connectors to go onto the new auger motor here, if and when I'm ready to install it. And on the old auger motor, I've just put some temporary wire connectors in. I had my testing cable out already, so I'm going to go ahead and just plug them into the new auger motor. And I'm also going to go ahead and check the rotation of the auger motor. So what I do is I put a black line on the shaft and a black line on the motor itself. Now, this is a Whitfield pellet stove. It uses a clockwise rotation on the auger motor. Every Whitfield on the market is designed to use the same 1 RPM auger motor, and it's a very common item. We keep a lot of them in stock for that reason. Alright, so I went ahead and I cleaned up the end of the auger shaft. It's going to be going back up inside of there, and I basically just used a commercial degreaser, in this case Paint Prep paint cleaner by Stove Bright, which is also what I'll be using to clean up the stove surface for painting later. After I got this all cleaned, I used a bottle brush to get Okay, so here's the old gasket for comparison. Here's the new gasket. The old gasket was probably okay, and you could have limped along on it, but if you can see, it was starting to get cracks around the edges. What happens is it'll just lose its anti-vibration. Okay, next step is get the auger up in there. So, new gasket goes up next. Okay, this part's pretty straightforward. We just need to make sure that we line up the shaft of the motor here with the hole. The collar goes on first, so this pokes through the hole in the auger and butts up tightly to the shaft. So just need to make sure it's a nice snug connection. Alright, so here it is, auger motor running. The installation is complete. I have it just run for now off of my little tester cord, which... Okay, so based on what I saw here today, there may have been some other problem with the auger motor, but my guess as to why the auger motor had failed in the first place was that this bushing and this bearing, the brass oilette bushing, which is not supposed to slide around in here, was eventually sort of acting like a disc brake and slowing this puppy down. Apparently that's why the previous owner had put high temperature anti-seize on it. According to the factory, this is the fix, is to install another brass bushing. In this case, you'd have to get this bushing plate as well, and then the oilette separately. The specific auger bushing for the Prodigy is not available, so instead, you're going to want to use this one for a Prodigy, a 1215390.